I think a lot of people were expecting that last week's policy conference would give us some clarity. It would give us some clarity on the ANC's direction on key policy issues, the economy, education, some of those sorts of things. And I think we also were hoping for some indication of what the state of the undeclared but very, very lively contest for the leadership of the party is in. So we would get a sense of whether Jacob Zuma's more decisive actions in recent months, the expulsion of Julius Malema, cabinet reshuffles, etc., have really consolidated his position ahead of the Mangaung elective conference, or whether the rebels, those who would like to see a new leader, possibly Kgalema Motlanthe, in the presidency and a replacement of Gwede Mantashe as Secretary General, whether they've really managed to rally the troops behind them. And unfortunately, we didn't get a lot of clarity on either of those things. Certainly there was a huge list of policy proposals put forward in the course of the conference, and some of them were definitely proxy battles for leadership expressed in policy terms. So the question of nationalisation is one of those kind of tests that you can do within the ANC right now in order to determine whether people support a second term for Jacob Zuma or not. Most people who support Jacob Zuma reject mine nationalisation. In the end, what we got was a series of fudges around increased state intervention in the mining sector, which are broadly in line with what the ANC's research team recommended. So that seemed on the surface to some extent like a win for Zuma, but actually there was so much of a battle in the commission that discussed that issue that we don't have that kind of clarity, and we don't really know exactly what the ANC's proposals mean. So the mining sector, this huge part of the economy, driver of massive activity locally, key source of foreign investment and so forth, is sitting trying to figure out what its future looks like, and it really doesn't have a lot to go on, except that there is a rising tone of populism within the ANC. And those of us who are looking for clear diagnostics on how strong Zuma is or isn't didn't get them either. His second transition document, which he set out his stall on so clearly at the beginning of the conference, when he said that the ANC needed to throw its weight behind the idea that we'd had one transition to democracy and that we now needed another one to economic change and to increased equality, was rejected by most of the delegates, who said that they didn't think that it was made sense historically, that they didn't think it was helpful. That was clearly a defeat for him. But then compromise language was introduced that described it as the second phase of the ongoing transition. So he managed to claw back something in that process, but again, a fudge and a muddle. So ordinary South Africans, business decision makers, political players, and journalists like us who were hoping for some clarity out of the policy conference, really didn't get it. The only clarity we got is that the ANC is exceedingly fractured, and that those fractures run deeply through the policy discussion, they run deeply through the leadership discussion, and while they don't neatly map one to the other, so you can't perfectly say that someone who supports the second transition supports Jacob Zuma and someone who doesn't supports his opponents, you can get a pretty clear sense that you can't disentangle the policy camps from the leadership camps. So what we're left with is a sense of a movement that is so caught up in the discussions around the future of its leadership, and so without an ideological and political center, that it's actually incapable of mapping a clear path forward for the country.